cloudy smudges that Ptolemy and Al-Sufi had seen with their naked eyes into clusters of distinct individual stars. Nebulae generated little interest during the next 200 years as astronomy was gripped by the Copernican and Newtonian revolutions. Until the 18th century, when two amateur astronomers, William and Caroline Herschel, burst on the scene. William was a musician by trade, but an astronomer by heart. He taught himself astronomy and, together with his brother Alex, how to construct his own telescopes. He even roped in his kid sister Caroline, first into the music business and then into his hobby-turned-obsession. Caroline Herschel would eventually become the first professional female astronomer. The only difference between amateur and professional astronomers is that the latter are paid for their work. This might seem a trifling distinction, but for a woman to be paid to be a scientist of any kind in the 18th century was unheard of. Though most of Caroline's work consisted of assisting William with his observations, she also had a research project of her own, chasing comets. Discovering new comets was very fashionable at the time. Bright comets are easily distinguished by their long, bushy tails, but faint comets, observed through the first generations of telescopes, appeared as fuzzy patches very similar to nebulae. Only by repeatedly observing them could one discern that, unlike nebulae, comets move across the night sky before eventually fading from view. For the French astronomer Charles Messier, run-of-the-mill nebulae were the chaff that had to be separated from the cometary wheat. To this end he produced a catalogue of nebulae that were not comets, so that he and other comet chasers would not be distracted by them. Ironically, Messier's catalogue of rejects is still in use today and has proved far more important than his work on comets. Many of the astronomical objects viewed and photographed by amateur astronomers are known by their Messier or M designations. For example, the Crab Nebula, created by the supernova explosion of 1054, is known as M1. The nebula in Andromeda was labeled M31. As Caroline Herschel searched for new comets, she noticed that there were many more fixed nebulae than the 110 that Messier had catalogued. His interest piqued, her brother set out to systematically discover more nebulae. Together with Caroline, William ended up cataloging nearly 2,500 nebulae. William Herschel then made a cognitive leap. He speculated that if nebulae were composed of stars and those stars were very far away, their combined light would not be resolved by his telescope into individual stars. He surmised, "As we are used to call the appearance of the heavens where it is surrounded with a bright zone the Milky Way, it may not be amiss to point out some other very remarkable nebulae which cannot well be less, but are probably much larger than our own system, for which reason they may also be called Milky Ways by way of distinction." Herschel was the first to propose that the universe was filled with galaxies. Yet while some of Herschel's contemporaries agreed with him that the nebulae represented faraway island universes, other luminaries, including Immanuel Kant and Pierre-Simon Laplace, suggested that these were nearby planetary systems, similar to our solar system, forming within our own galaxy. The debate between the island universe model and Laplace's nebular hypothesis raged well into the 20th century. It centered on a basic problem in astronomy, measuring distances in space. Were the nebulae nearby or far away? Were they part of the Milky Way galaxy or distinct objects outside of it? The stakes of this debate were of cosmic proportions, as the answer would determine the size of the universe. If science were a Hollywood movie, then the climax of this story would be the night of 26 April 1920, when in front of a large crowd assembled at the National Academy of Sciences in Washington, D.C., Harlow Shapley defended the planetary hypothesis, while Heber D. Curtis argued the case for the island universe model. Though popularly known as the Great Debate, the result was, drum roll please, unimportant. Science is not a democratic process. You do not sway other scientists to your side by being